We are recording.
Alright.
Well, Brad, let's work on your IPDP goals. We just
Okay.
had a few minutes with the rest of the team to go over your growth plan, the one that we have as a team. And the purpose of this conversation is to help you identify an area of strength and an area of growth, and to write a goal and figure out how you're going to move forward with that. So let's just jump in. I'd like you to review the self-comfort graphic data and identify goal areas that you are very comfortable, or areas that you are very comfortable with, and you do not feel like you'd like to set a goal in that area. So eliminate the ones
I'm not gonna,
that you feel good with, that you're not
Yeah,
going to set a goal.
probably not time management either. If I were gonna set a goal, it would be, I would say it would be in coaching. That's the one that I wanna work on the most, and I think that will probably assume some sheltered instruction work, but, you know, working on those coaching relationships and thinking through coaching steps in terms of asking questions, seeking information, reporting data, all of that, trying to be very deliberate about coaching.
Great. So these others in are areas that you feel strong in. You just want to take a quick minute and standard 4.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. It's standard 5 and standard 7. I misspoke. Those were the 2 standards that you identified as areas you wanted to work in. Could you just explain to me how the areas that you are not, that you consider your strengths, are tied to those standards?
So standard 5 is use a variety of methods to monitor student learning, and then are we looking at all of them, or
Just,
are we looking at
just pick. Can you find a connection between the standard criteria in each of those that you feel good about?
Yeah, so he uses a variety of methods. I would say with working with our model classroom teachers on sheltered instruction, that's we already use a variety of methods, I suppose you could call them that way, through our SciOp class. And so we've looked at strategies here. We're going to go into instruction. What are we going into? Anyway,
I think instruction is the
yeah.
next one.
So we had done, yeah, so we're going to look at some scaffolding, or we had done some scaffolding. We're going to look at interaction. That's what it is. So
You're right.
instruction we had looked at, and then we're going to go into, and then before that we'd looked at strategies and building background. And so we have a variety of methods to monitor student learning in that fashion. From the full, from full district PD as well as from Wednesday PD, we monitor student learning within the situation, but also, there are things that we ask teachers to do from their Wednesday time that we often talk about, like in the administration meeting at the building level, but also with you. To say, okay, our teacher's doing these things, what, if anything, might we need to nudge them along? So I think that's what you're after for standard 5.
I think you're right. Give me one example of the kinds of feedback that you collect or that you ask for from either the full day or the Wednesday.
Feedback from the full day, I think, would be in the process, and so we have taught about using the SciOp lesson planning guide. Is that right? Yeah, and it's, how quickly I forget. And so we are often engaged pretty, kind of over the shoulder, pretty instantaneous response in terms of, hey, what do you think about this? Oh yeah, have you thought about these other things? And looking at them build a unit, build a lesson using those designs. With Wednesday PD, we have Dee created a spreadsheet to have people tabulate, have groups tabulate what they're doing within curriculum manager, and then we can from there start to foster conversations about, okay, what are the next steps? Yeah, you got all this stuff you've got essential questions. Are they really essential questions? Do they need to be broader? Do those essential questions? So we have areas to kind of give them feedback for Wednesday PD time, as well as I guess that's common unit design now. That's in their course of life workings.
Okay, those are great examples of the types of formative assessments that I was wanting you to think about. So, coaching one-to-one is an area that you've identified that you'd like to set as a growth area. And my guess is that's going to very closely align to engaging in professional growth. I think you mentioned earlier some specific areas of coaching that you'd like to become more skilled at or more familiar with. So that's, I think, an excellent connection there to Standard 7. Let's write a SMART goal for coaching one-to-one for your IPDP, and this would be a goal that is unique to you, not one that would necessarily be shared by all the other instructional coaches. And so I've prepared a sort of generic STEM for us to use to fill in. Traditionally, SMART goals would be written from a student perspective, but you're not working with students, and so we can either start with Brad will, or we can start with model classroom teachers. Think about, I'm going to ask you to make a decision pretty quickly, which structure. What are you going to do that is sustainable, that would not be a one-time thing, but something that could develop over time? How will we measure it? What are you going to look for as an acceptable measure of growth? And how long do you want to work on this particular goal? So we can kind of fill in these boxes as we go. So think of an area, and by the way, Brad, coaching one-to-one was...
Hey, I guessed right.
...was the area that if I had to pick a growth goal for you would have been where I went, so we agree on that. You're going to have to select a specific area of one-to-one coaching.
This is my first year coaching, and so just as a background, I've been reading obviously about coaching from various books with Jim Knight, and like we had talked about before we turned on the camera about questioning. I think if there's one thing that I've just learned through this process, that is about, if I were going to say something, I would talk about myself. I will question or ask various types of questions, I guess, because it's not just, one type of question. So we'll have to look at some various types of questions. And you've given me stuff about that already. So.
Yeah, and if I could make a suggestion just to keep it succinct here, that would be to look at the ORED model of questioning. Yeah. And you're right, we just talked about that as a team.
So a percent of, in a coaching cycle, wow. So if we're talking about planning and post-conference, and we're going to take those together, man, I would shoot for 70-30. So I'm asking questions most of the time, so I would be speaking 30% of the time, whereas the MCT would be responding, talking 70%.
Okay, we got two different goals going here. Let's figure out, because you can, your choice. Do you want to work on improving the quality of the questions that you're working on, which would be working on the ORED questions, or do you want to work on talk time distribution between teachers?
Yeah.
Because I see those as two separate.
Sure. Yeah. No, I would want to. Because I don't know how to measure that. I would want to improve the quality of the questions. Both, maybe both quality and frequency, but.
Let's just
Let's-
stick with
let's
one
with
for
one.
one goal. One.
But
We
I
can
love-
write a second
I
goal.
love
We can write a
frequency.
second goal. Let's write a goal for quality, and then we can write a goal for quantity. So you will ask quality ordered questions as measured by. I can do the verbatim scripting, or you can go back through you could audio tape and go back through your own questions, or if you're going to script questions, you could just look at the questions that you script. I mean, you have some choices here on how it could be measured.
Yeah, I do both, but whether I script them or not, it's going to come out in an audio tape, and so I think we'll audio tape them, and then I'll classify, or you can classify, or we can do it both. You know, we both can classify those questions, and look at, you know, really to look at what sort of questions I'm getting at. Are they? And I forgot the order.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back and
Yeah.
look quickly. You know, are they objective, reflective,
right,
interpretive?
And I think a good start here would be just to simply to record the questions through selective verbatim, and then go through and measure the quantity of objective and reflective and decisionals, and we want a growth goal here, so it would be to increase the amount of
Yeah, I would say probably reflective, definitely.
and let's say, just to throw out, to give you a goal to shoot for, let's say you're going to look for from the time you start until the time you finish. I mean, the time you start measuring your reflective questions,
Okay.
An increase of 25%.
Okay.
I mean, to set a goal for yourself. So Brad will increase by 25% reflective questions as measured by the ORID structure through the selective verbatim technique.
Yep.
Does that sound like a reasonable goal for you to work on?
I think so.
Okay. So the current growth plan that you're working under now, which does not address questioning at all, what areas of support are you going to need? What areas need to be strengthened in the plan? Another way to ask that is what kinds of supports are you going to need in order to reach this goal?
I think, you know, maybe the only support would be a conference with you, and so once again, I will audio tape and or videotape a coaching cycle of pre-planning or pre-observation and a post-observation, and then I'll you know, tally I'll tally the questions that I ask. I'll send that to you. I think that's the support I'm looking for.
Okay.
I'll send that to you and go, am I doing this right? Am I, you know, kind of hitting the areas I need to hit? And then, you know, that will, I think the first one will be a sort of baseline data, and we'll go from there. Is that what you're thinking?
That sounds great, and I certainly can provide that for you. That's going to help us here finish off our SMART goal, which is the last area we need to identify is how long are you going to do this measurement? We need a time frame here on this.
You know, I know that within the next 2 months, we have to have at least, I will have at least 2 visits with all the teachers, and so I think, you know, within the next 2 months for me, I would like to have a baseline and then a second data point, so.
So from March 1st to May 1st?
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds good. Now, what needs to happen first in order for you to get started on this goal? You've got a strong goal here.
You know, really, I will carry on with their course of action. So our next piece is about interaction. in the SIOP model. And so I'll start to think about, okay, I have to have a coaching cycle with our four coaches at the high school, and what are some questions given that model I'll start to ask, because I'll need to use some of their questions about interaction. So I'll have some kind of in the hopper that I can use. I'm assuming probably many of them will be what, but as we go, you know, I have a few reflective questions up my sleeve, obviously, as well as interpretive and decisional. I think will probably be within the you know, within the path of coaching, within the talking about a lesson that they will use.
I agree.
So
I agree. What are you going to do to stay the course? I mean, 8 weeks is a long, I mean, it's, it can be a long time, or it can be a short time, depending upon the length of, you know, the goals. Given the time we are in the school year, it's a reasonable length of time to work with. What are you going to do to stay the course, to keep?
well, you know, I don't know that questioning is going to go away. It's one of the aspects of the job that I think about. You know, how to, in terms of reflection. So there are lots of points throughout the day that aren't necessarily connected to a coaching cycle, in which I have to position teachers to see things by asking them questions. So, you know, as a course keeping sort of activity, I can start to be real deliberate about the sorts of questions I ask, you know, when I bump into teachers.
Okay. So we're just almost finished here. New learning or deeper learning, can you identify any new learning or deeper learning that you may need to have in order to focus?
Well, I need to continue reading my gymnastics books.
Okay.
So that's, you know, I think that's going to be a piece of this puzzle. I'll think more about org, you know, the org sort of questions, and dig into some of those too.
Okay. You've already indicated that what you're going to, the support you'd like from me is to have conversations with you and to go over data that you may have collected with you, and I'm committing to do that. I'm very willing to do that. How will you know if you've met your goal?
Well,
Getting back to the goal.
I think on a second go-round, I will have asked more reflective questions by at least 25%, possibly even more.
Okay.
And certainly I think that will bear out, you know, if we're talking about an aggregate amount of questions from the pre to the post, it should bear out.
I agree. How will you know at the end of this goal period? This is more of a reflective question here. How will you know if this goal, the one that you've set yourself, was actually a high impact goal?
Yeah, I think I'll know, because I will see teachers reflecting on their own practice, those model classroom teachers reflecting on their own practice, and that will do a number of things. I think that will begin to solidify, cement the practice that they have, that they may add to, or that they certainly already do within their classroom, that produces results that we see producing like a higher effect than you know, than previous activities, or previous, you know, or not doing anything at all. That's not the case. So I think that's one way I'll know I will be successful. Probably that will be the sort of feel-good piece, you know. But also I'll have a measurable tally, and I'll be able to go, oh yeah, I have or haven't made the mark on asking reflective questions.
Okay. So our follow-up then is going to happen when you have data to share with me. And then I would suggest that we get together sometime in early May to look at not only the one or separate sets of data, but to look at growth over time in the data that you have.
Yeah. And I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
On data as it comes in.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad.